Alrighty, folks. I am here with Stephanie Hughes from WIS, one of our amazing sponsors who I'm so excited to be working with because, as you'll hear as the time goes on, we just have really similar goals with Strong Girls United and WIS kind of aligning. And a lot of those missions that we're working to bring women into industries and into places that they aren't necessarily historically welcome. I think that it's really fun to be able to be a part of a group and be partnered with a group that is so focused on it as well. So, Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us. And for our listeners who don't know WIS, would you be able to give us a little background of who you guys are, what you do, and all of it?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having us, Charlie. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to partnering with you guys going forward. Like you said, we have very similar missions. WIS is actually a full service accounting firm. We help people and companies navigate everything from this inception of a business. We help them grow their business. We help them sell their business. We help the families with their personal wealth. So it's full service. It's one of the fastest growing accounting firms in the U.S. I have to give a shout out to people who want to become accountants. It's a great thing to do, and it's a great industry to be in. We really are encouraging of it. I think the bias out there right now is negative around accountants, but the old model has changed significantly, and accountants do everything from partner with people who are business owners, partner with people looking to buy businesses. They're really at the heart of every decision that a business owner has to make and that a family has to make. So it's a great career to have. Financial advisory is also a great career. We're talking specifically about women. Only 16% of financial advisors currently are women, and it's a great career for a woman to have. So I would encourage you girls listening to really explore it and to really tap into the curiosity that you may have about these fields.
It's pretty cool. I mean, if you have a curiosity, anybody listening, if you have a curiosity for anything, like, don't let anything hold you back. Like, explore it. And if that curiosity ends up fading, like, that's also completely all right. But having the courage and having the confidence to be able to step into it is so much of what we promote here with Strong Girls United and Strong Girls Pod. Of, we want you to have that confidence to step into this role. We want you to have that confidence to say, heck yeah, pass me that ball. Let's go play on the field together, to anybody and everybody. And I think that there's so much of, like you had just said, Stephanie, that really aligns with both of our mission statements. And so if you've got a curiosity, explore it no matter what the field.
I love that.
Now, going in, for everybody listening, we're doing a new style of ads here with Strong Girls Pod, and we're really prioritizing, instead of just reading off of a paragraph and telling you what's really cool about certain brands, is we really want these brands that we're so proud to be partnered with and representing to represent themselves. And something that we've decided to do with WIS here and with Stephanie is we are doing a tips series, and we're doing a tips series for listeners from ranges middle school, high school, college, everybody this can apply to. So starting young is not a bad idea to get started in financial literacy and understanding and all of it. And so we're going to be doing a nice little tip series, starting with tip number 1. Hitting it over to you, Stephanie.
Tip number 1, save more money than you spend, right? So make sure that you have 3 primary buckets. One is money that you want to spend, and the second one is money that you want to save, and the third one is money that you want to give away. Maybe at Christmas time you want to buy somebody a gift, or maybe you want to donate it to a certain charity. But that's money for really what your heart wants that money to be used for.
I love it. And I feel like for the listeners who are my age who are coming in, I am just learning that little piece of it. Now that I have jobs that and bills to pay and all of it going in, like, I'm looking at setting money aside to make sure that I can afford my rent and that I can afford my electric each month, or saving money up. It's about to be Christmas season from time to time. So saving money up so that I can afford to buy Christmas presents for my family and my friends. Those little things I didn't necessarily think about but were so important. And I remember like all I ever used to save for was like Christmas presents, but I would only start thinking about it like following Thanksgiving. And thinking about it early, like kind of having that little slush fund of just in case an emergency happens, or if an emergency doesn't happen, saving it for a rainy day or saving it for gifts to give later can be such a fun little piece of things. Do you have any tips when it comes into older, like people who are starting their first jobs or people who are in college? Do you have any tips kind of catered to that idea of like saving versus spending first? Of what a good like little process is once you start working in the workforce, like myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're older, you do have a steady income. If you're lucky enough to have a company that has a retirement account, I would definitely take advantage of that. If your company does not have a retirement account, you can open what's called a Roth IRA or an individual retirement account, just a regular traditional IRA, and put money in there pre-tax. That saves whatever money whatever tax bracket you're in, you'll save that much money by just putting it in there. So it's worth every penny, and every dollar you save pre-tax is risk-free basically. So it's better than making a dollar in the market because you have no risk. So I would definitely encourage you to open up a retirement account. And you might think, I'm so young, how can I think of retirement? Well, you have to think of retirement, and the younger you are, when you think about it, the better, because that money can grow. And right now, interest rates are very high. You could potentially get 5% even just sitting in cash, which is also pretty risk free if you're in a very good cash equivalent type of strategy, a money market fund. You can also, if it's a retirement account, you want to grow that money. So you want to invest in something that's diversified, that's going to grow over time, because you have, let's say 40, 50, 40 years until you're going to tap into that money. So that's your bucket. That's long term. If you're working, you might have a shorter term bucket as well. That's a lot more liquid. It's a lot more, not liquid, it's less volatile, that you use to fund shorter term goals. Like you may want to buy a home at some point. You may, save for your children's college, whatever it is. You want that money to have the volatility that's required to invest in something shorter term. So I would say retirement account, growing the money according to the time horizon that you'll be needing that money, and then investing when you are investing. Just start early. Don't overthink it, and do something where your risk is diversified and you're spreading your risk across different things. And that's pretty easy to do today with index funds. The people who don't invest early, sometimes they want to, but they don't know where to start and they overthink things. I would say you're going to set yourself back the more you wait. Don't overthink it. Buy some index funds that are diversified. You have some financial education that you can get on our series we did with Kelly O'Hara called So You Want to Invest. You have great companies like Vanguard and Fidelity where you can get some education on your own by just looking at a website about these different strategies. So there's a lot out there for people that don't know where to start.
I love it. It's fun to hear just like the sheer volume of availability that there is to learn about this and to kind of get involved in it. Makes it seem like a huge thing, but also like a simplified huge thing that
Mm-hmm.
becomes really tangible in the short term and the long term,
Definitely.
which is so exciting. Um, Alrighty, and that's tip number one, folks. Now, going back with our WIS tips series, we're looking at tip number two today. So, Stephanie, do you want to take us in with tip number two?
Sure. Tip number two for specifically your age group as well is have a steady income. What that means is have money coming in that's regular. So that could be chores, that could be something you do in your neighborhood, that could be babysitting, that could be a small job. It could be anything where you're getting something, but you're building that regular habit. That's going to set you up for success in whatever it is you do.
I love it. It again, like having that little bit of steadiness can then be so much more beneficial. And we look back at the ideas that we heard in tip number 1, which is save more than you spend. And it's the same idea of if you have a steady income, you can kind of prepare yourself for the future.
Absolutely.
You can kind of have that little bit of a slush fund of the save it for our rainy days or the emergency just in case something happens. And it becomes easy when you just have a little bit of a plan. And again, it could start as something as simple as babysitting or running a lemonade stand. And it could go all the way up into, for if you're in college and you're in high school, like your first jobs or your first internships, starting to save then instead of just taking that money that you're making and spending it right away, having that little bit of savings, having that little slush fund, it just becomes something that's really fun to have later.
Totally, totally. And that leads us in to tip number 3. Build good habits, build a routine, and start planning early. So, tip number 2, having that steady and regular income leads to really building a habit. If you build a habit around having that income, having a routine, planning around that money, it's going to lead you to tip number 4, which is save in buckets. Save in a short term, a medium term, and a long term bucket. So, short term bucket can be you're buying yourself something for your birthday, or you're buying a friend something for their birthday in a week or two, right? That's a short term bucket. A medium term bucket is something later on. Depending on your age, that may mean in 6 months is a medium term bucket. And a long term bucket helps you really conceptualize what your goals are later on in life. It's going to help you, you know, align that bucket around what do you want to be? What do you want to be later? Like, what's your plan? Have a plan. Do you want to, do you want to go to college? Do you want to go to medical school? Do you want to become a journalist? Do you want to become a veterinarian? It helps you. You can talk about your money in the context of what you want to be. And that's what the long term bucket really is for.
I love it. And filling those buckets up, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but filling up these buckets, it doesn't mean that you have to divide them up equally in each moment. It
Absolutely.
just it just means that you should start thinking about these things and looking at when I was younger, like I had an idea of I wanted to go to college, but I didn't necessarily have my bucket saved, like the idea that I needed to have a large bucket. Now that I'm out of it, I'm starting to think, okay, down the road, I want to buy a house eventually. And so my long-term bucket, my big large bucket for the long term becomes saving up for a house one day or saving up for a new car or something that's going to come years down the road. And in the short term, it's like saving for stuff like rent and groceries and something that's so like tangible of what I need week by week, month by month. And then that
Exactly.
medium becomes like celebrations or trips or any plans that come outside of my daily, weekly, monthly plan of any added bonus that becomes my medium bucket.
That's awesome. I love how you're already doing that.
I don't know if I necessarily thought of it in the aspect of buckets, but the second you said it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I do this.
Yeah, and these are buckets within buckets, right? Because the first goal, it was saving, spending, and charitable giving, right? And then this is
Exactly.
within the saving bucket, you got short term, medium term, long term. You don't want to overcomplicate things, but at the same time, it helps you feel secure because you do have that plan in the future, and you want to be flexible too. So you could change things up a little bit if you'd like.
I love it. I love I love the idea of like being able to start with something of like looking back into the earlier tips and starting with kind of that baseline and then moving into the idea of like, okay, we've got this baseline of where we want to save. We're starting to make money. We're starting to do this. We're starting to have the opportunity to save. So now how are we doing it? And we're getting in as we go deeper and deeper. Um,
Exactly.
and I have a sneaking suspicion that's going to take us into tip number 5 here.
That's right. So, tip number 5 is buy something that lasts for the long term where you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. So, when you get older, you'll be able to invest in things like invest in the market. You'll be able to invest in a bunch of different companies. with not too much money, and that money will grow. And that's what we mean by invest in something that's going to grow, or you'll be able to eventually buy something like a home or buy an asset. But when you're younger, you might buy something that that's not as big, that you think is a good purchase and it's going to last you a long time in the future. So
And
that's what you want to do. You want to invest in things that don't go away.
yeah, and almost like starting from a young age, investing in things that bring joy or enjoyment. It could be
Yep,
the start. And spanning into, like you were saying, in the long run, like you're investing in stuff that could lead to you getting a house when you're an
that's
adult.
right.
But
That's right.
growing up, I mean, saving for something that's going to bring you an outward amount of joy that might have a long term amount of joy that it brings too becomes something so cool. Like it could be a piece of
Right.
sports equipment. It could be a game that you've been really wanting for a really long time, something that you've been working towards that you know will
Yeah.
bring you enjoyment for a long period of time.
Exactly.
That becomes equally worth that investment. Like that is an investment in you and in yourself just as much as when you're older and when you're growing up as investing in that enjoyment of being able to have a roof over your head that's your own.
Absolutely. So I like how you said that. Investing in something that brings you an emotion for a long period of time. That's a great way. That's a great way to talk about like making the most out of your money when you're young. Meaning, an article of clothing, it might bring you enjoyment for a long period of time. It might not. So think of really what you value as a person and what you think is going to give you that emotion of joy and gratitude over a long time.
Now, this is a totally like personal, but do you have anything that you can think of growing up that was like your first like enjoyment investment where you were like, I saved my money? I can think of mine of like, I saved my money from lemonade stands, and my first big buy was a ripstick. And that was like my
Cool.
favorite thing was learning how to ripstick. Like I'd wanted one forever. I'd thought about it for a really long time. I had done like silly things growing up where I would buy something right then in that moment if I had a savings, but I had been wanting a ripstick for so long. And so finally I took the time and I like put a box aside of like this was my ripstick money. And then when I finally saved it, I was so excited because I
Yeah.
hadn't wasted it on something in the short term. I had saved it for something that I knew was going to last me forever. Like that my ripstick was awesome.
And you remember how you felt about it.
Oh yeah. Like definitely, easily. And
You
that
remember
had to be
you paid for it.
oh yeah, I remember that I had my cash and my quarters that I paid for it with.
I do remember, just I was very frugal as a kid. So, my parents would give me some money for whatever it was, if it was lunch. And, they didn't ask for the change sometimes, and I would save it up. And I remember opening up a bank account and saving and seeing the effects of that saving, how much it added up, even if it was like $5 every day. I remember what that added up, what the number at the end of it. And then I remember also babysitting and saving that money. I saved everything. I didn't buy a lot. And I just remember going into college and I had that babysitting money, and it was incredible just seeing the money grow. And I kind of became obsessed with that concept. And I still think about it today. The numbers that it equal. I remembered, the amount of zeros that that were on the slip, on the bank slip when I took the money out. And I remember thinking, wow, I put in like $5 each time, and it really did compound. So it's. I just remember that feeling of like, wow, this money can grow, and it's pretty cool how that happens.
And we wonder why. I think we probably don't wonder why you ended up in the career that you did. But I love it, and I think that it's so cool of like again, like having that memory of like we are past our middle school years. Shocker, I know for everybody listening that this may come as a surprise, but we are not early teenagers or preteens anymore. But doing those things like so early, I mean, I remember like I think my ripstick purchase was in elementary school. Like I think I was like 8 years old, and I
Wow.
still remember this. And again, like this is a lasting memory. That was over 15 years ago now,
Right.
and that is something that, like, there are people listening on here who are like 15 years home. Oh my gosh, I'm not even 15. So I'm like, yeah, this was before some of you were even born that I bought this ripstick, but I
Wow.
still remember it. And like putting in that little bit early
Yeah.
just becomes something that's so much bigger in the long run.
Creating those habits. It's just like we talk about sports, creating the habit, the habits that you've learned in sports, you take in business, you take it for the rest of your life. That those friendships you take everywhere. So it's creating habits. It's those daily habits that are going to lead you to be successful and have that freedom after. Because once you're empowered and you know how to save, and you know that that money can buy you things, and can buy you some optionality, then you're able to have that freedom and make choices for yourself that you may have not had the opportunity to make if you hadn't been empowered to do that.
It's so good. It's so good. And it's going to lead for everybody listening, whether you are under or over 10 years old, under or over 20 years old, under or over 30, beyond. Like, there is a piece of this that becomes so important for everybody. It kind of exits the realm of like, this only applies to one age. Like, this can be
Right.
started young and ended later and ended older. And like, I mean, I only went up to like 30, but there are ages way past there that like this is equally important for. Like, this doesn't ever leave the conversation. This doesn't ever leave the thought process. It becomes something that
Never.
you can live with forever.
Yep, and the older you get, the more important it gets, because your time is getting more limited. So you have less time to grow that money and to save. So if you do this early on, we always say this at WIS, like, you're a millionaire, you just don't know it. When you start very early, you have time to save and to be a millionaire when you get older. And it's really true. These little things every day, these little habits of saving a little bit every day will make you a millionaire when you're older and when you're retired.
I love it. And again, like, it could just start with $5 a day. That's all that it.
Exactly.
And
Absolutely.
and $5 a day can be doable. And if it's not doable, then $1 a day. It still makes just as much of a difference.
Absolutely. So start
Yeah.
early. That's really the important part. Start early. Don't overthink it. And have fun with it.
Yeah. Start early so you don't have to worry late, and so that you don't really ever have to worry at all. It becomes
That's great.
let it be joyful in the process. Let it be a game. Let it, again, that idea of investing in joy and investing in something that evokes a long-term emotion. Let the long-term emotion be like the act of putting in that effort and starting early and investing early in you.
I love that. I mean, if I did a quick calculation on the side. So if you're investing $5 a day every single day for saving or investing that $5 a day, and let's just say it doesn't even grow, you're just saving it, you're putting it to the side every day for 20 years. That's $36,000, $36,500 at the end. That's a lot of money just from saving $5 a day. Now, if you let that money grow, it would be a lot more. So if you invested it in something that grew, you would have more. So these are just some math to show you what that can amount to.
I like it. So, for everybody listening, that's our tips series. So thank you so much for joining us with the tips, Stephanie. I'm so glad that we've gotten to share all of these.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great chatting with you. Looking forward to next time we talk. And again, looking forward to the partnership between WIS and Strong Girls, and partnering on our missions.
It's pretty exciting stuff to come. So for everybody listening, keep your eyes open for all the partnerships with WIS and Strong Girls to come, because we are encouraging women to break into industries that they were previously uncomfortable, and that is something that's going to be so awesome for the years to come and for our missions to come to complete.
Can't wait, Charlie. Thanks so much.
Of course.